Alright, so anyway, continuing on. So, yung eukaryotes, ano ba yung mga alam yung eukaryotes? Either fungi or parasites, di ba? Fungi or parasites. Tapos yung parasites, pwede mo i-divide further into protozoa or helminths. Yung protozoa, apat yon. So either apicomplexan, tulad ng malaria, pwede ring ciliate, pero kasi isa lang naman yung ciliate na may naka-affect sa humans. So Balantidium coli yata yun, no? So hindi okay na yun, dalawa na lang natitira. So natitira, flagellates and amoebas. So yun. So pag nag-aaral kayo ng protozoa, asynchronously do sa YouTube video, so apicomplexans, flagellates, and amoeba. Tatlo lang. Okay. Sa helminths, yung mga bulate, tatlo lang din yon. Roundworms, flukes, and tapeworms. Nematodes, cestodes, and shermatodes. Okay. So lahat yon itabi muna natin for today. Kasi ang didiscuss natin is yung prokaryotes. Okay, prokaryotes. Sige, tingnan natin ha. Ito pala. But kasi hindi ko na next slide. Pero sige, antimicrobials could be divided between antibacterials na prokaryotes and antifungals and antiparasitics eukaryotes. For tomorrow yan. So, a large part of what we will be learning today are all antibacterials. Sige. Okay. So, antibacterials, pag nag-aaral kayo ng antibacterials by mechanism. So, 5 yon. Pero among those 5, ang aralin natin today, 4 lang. Okay? 4. So, ano yung 4 na yon? Cell wall synthesis inhibitors, protein synthesis inhibitors, folic acid synthesis inhibitors, and DNA synthesis inhibitors. No? Yan. So, cell wall, protein, folic acid, and DNA. Yung antimicrobacterials, kailan natin aralin? Tomorrow, asynchronously. Okay? Ano ba yung mycobacteria na alam nyo? Pwedeng Mycobacterium tuberculosis, pwedeng Mycobacterium leprae, no? So yung mga causative agent ng pulmonary tuberculosis, for example, and leprosy. Pero yun, tomorrow pa. Okay, sige. So, yung 4, among those 4, ang aralin natin, sa part 1, cell wall synthesis inhibitors lang, and 1 class of protein synthesis inhibitors. Yun yung tinatawag nating aminoglycosides. Okay? Sa part 2 ng lecture natin, sa second half, doon natin discuss yung protein synthesis, folic acid synthesis inhibitors, and DNA synthesis inhibitors. Sige, let's continue. So what's this figure telling us? It's just telling us the different targets of the different antibiotics. Diba? Tapos, meron pala ako isang point out na point. Most antibiotics gain specificity by targeting a structure that is only found in bacteria. So para hindi maapektuhan yung cells ng humans, yung tinatarget nila na structure are only found in bacteria. So for example, tingnan nyo yung nasa lower left. Hindi nyo kita yung cursor ko, no? Tama ba? So anyway, so kung so yung parang peach or pink dito sa may lower left, yung cell wall synthesis inhibitors, ang tina-target niya ay peptidoglycan synthesis and peptidoglycan cross-linking. So yung peptidoglycan, meron ba niya sa cell wall ng humans? Wala. Kasi in the first place, wala namang cell wall ang humans, di ba? So kaya, doon siya nagkakaroon ng specificity. Next, tingnan natin yung protein synthesis inhibitors dito sa lower right, yung mga kulay blue. 30S and 50S subunit. Saan ba nakita yung mga ganong subunits? Di ba sa prokaryotes lang? Sa prokaryotes lang yan. Kasi sa humans, ang meron subunits ay 40S and 60S ribosomal subunits. Okay? So sige. Doon naman sa folic acid synthesis dito sa upper left, yung kulay green. Dito sa dyan, at yung target na enzyme ay dihydropteroate synthase. Wala rin yon sa humans. Okay? Right. So yon. So anyway, tuloy natin further. So let's start for this part of the lecture to talk about the antibacterials that target the cell envelope. They all have a common structure, and that is called the beta-lactam structure. So they are called the beta-lactam antibiotics. However, take note ha, hindi lahat ng the drugs that target the cell wall, hindi sila lahat beta-lactams. Merong iba, mangilan-ngilan na hindi beta-lactam, And that is, for example, vancomycin. Pero sa dulo yun. So, nasa dulo sila ng lecture natin i-discuss. Let's start first with beta-lactam antibiotics. Appropriate naman na una silang i-discuss kasi sila rin naman yung unang na-discover, di ba? Sino ang naka-discover no? Si Alexander Fleming. Yung nagko-culture siya ng bacteria, tapos naiwan niya, may tumubong fungi, Penicillium notatum, and nakita siya ng zone of inhibition of growth ng surrounding ng microorganisms. Okay. So, pag sinabing antibacterials that target the cell envelope is just beta-lactams and the others. So, ano ba yung tinutukoy ng beta-lactam na yan? It refers to the beta-lactam ring. Shown here in this figure, yung labeled na letter B. No? Yung B, yung parang square. So, it's a secondary amino group. Pag sinabing amino group, di ba may nitrogen containing, NH3, pero kapag secondary, may dalawang nakakabit sa kanya. So, yan. Okay. So, pag tinanong itong structure na to, penicillins yun, is one of the major classes of beta-lactams, right? So, yan yung unang discover. Yung mga bacteria, naka-develop sila eventually na resistance to penicillins because they have enzymes called penicillinases. And what penicillinases do is that they break the beta-lactam ring at the site labeled number 1 dito sa figure na to, no? So when penicillinases do it, na-inactivate niya yung antibiotic forming penicilloic acids. Right. So just to complete this figure, kung may penicillinase, meron din namang amidase. Kung yung penicillinase important for the resistance of bacteria, yung amidase naman important for drug synthesis. Drug synthesis. So sa laboratory, kapag tinreat yung penicillins na amidase enzymes, kanya i-cut or i-cleave yung position number 2. Tapos, pwedeng palit-palitan ng iba't ibang derivatives para magkaroon ng iba't ibang activity and specificity yung different penicillin compounds. Okay. So, ito ba lalabas sa exam? Remember, kapag sa pharmacology na exam ko, hindi lumalabas yung structures. It just helps us to make connections in our mind. No? Kung ano bang basis ng mga different activities of the different compounds that we're talking about. Okay, sige. So let's move on to the different classes of beta-lactam antibiotics. So there are 4 that I'm going to be discussing today. Penicillins, cephalosporins, carbapenems, and monobactam. So ano yung basis nila nung naming na yan, nung classification na yan? Yung chemical structure shown here on the right. So tignan lang, so ang pinaka-basic pa rin dyan is penicillin. But take note that all of them have the beta-lactam ring as shown in B. Pero yung letter A na ring is not found in everyone. Kaya ano pang papansin natin dyan? Yung structure ng penicillin and cephalosporin mas magkalapit to each other. Therefore, there is some chance of cross-reactivity between penicillins and cephalosporins. Ano ibig sabihin nun? Halimbawa, allergic ka sa penicillin, there is some chance that you are also allergic to a cephalosporin. Okay, sige. More on that later on. Alright. So penicillins have the greatest activity against gram-positive, gram-negative, and non-beta-lactamase producing anaerobes. They are susceptible to hydrolysis by beta-lactamase. Napitan natin kanina yung structure, ay yung part kung saan uma-attack yung beta-lactamase, di ba? Sige. So, focus tayo out of those 4. Penicillin, cephalosporin, carbapenem, monobactam. Focus muna tayo sa penicillins, yung unang na-discover. Penicillins could be generally divided into 3. Narrow spectrum penicillinase susceptible, very narrow spectrum penicillinase resistant, and wider spectrum penicillinase susceptible drugs. Okay, ano ba kasi yung penicillinase susceptible? Halimbawa niyan, Staphylococcus aureus. So sige. Tapos before we move forward, kailangan natin linawin ano ba yung sabihin nung spectrum. So yung spectrum, ibig sabihin lang niya kung effective lang ba siya to one kind of bacteria or to many kinds of bacteria. Specifically, sa penicillins, kapag very narrow spectrum, it means that they are only effective in gram-positive. Okay? Gram-positive. Pero as they have wider spectrum, habang nagbo-broaden yung spectrum, habang nade-develop yung iba't ibang gamot, na mas effective sa different types of bacteria, eventually nagkakaroon ng coverage to gram-negatives, atypicals like Mycoplasma and Chlamydophila, as well as anaerobes. Okay? So yun yung general trend na kailangan natin matutunan, no? Starting with gram-positive, moving forward. Okay. So kung i-rearrange natin itong list na to, ano yung lowest spectrum? Yung 1, yung 2, or yung 3? Ang narrowest spectrum, yung number 2, di ba? Very narrow spectrum. So gram-positive lang yan gumagana. Pero ang maganda sa kanya is penicillinase resistant. Therefore, technically, theoretically, dapat effective siya against Staphylococcus aureus. Very narrow spectrum. Second layer, narrow spectrum penicillinase, and lastly, yung widest spectrum penicillinase susceptible drugs. Okay. Sige, tuloy natin. Let's start with the classic ones. Ito pala, so pag nakita nyo yung ganitong figure sa libro, ibig sabihin lang yan, yan yung, di ba pinakita ko sa kanya yung amidase kanina? Yan yung, pag tinanggal nyo yung amidase, pwedeng palitan yan ng side chain na yan. Para magkaroon ng iba't ibang activity yung different penicillin compounds. Okay, let's start with the narrow spectrum penicillinase susceptible agents. So merong two types, IV or oral. Yung IV is also known as penicillin G or benzyl penicillin. It is an acid labile compound. Kaya nga siya, hindi pwedeng inumin orally. Kasi acidic yung stomach, di ba? So, madedegrade siya doon. Kaya, binibigay siya either IV or meron din tayo tinatawag na depot formulations. Pag sabing depot, may lalagay sa muscle mo, tapos unti-unti niya i-release yung antibiotic. So, yun. So, parang longer lasting yung effect niya, no? Parang slow release, in other words. So, yung PenG or benzyl penicillin could be given IV, pero meron depot formulations, benzathine PenG and procaine PenG, both given intramuscularly. Yung counterpart naman, kung kailangan oral na pag-inom ng gamot, we have penicillin V or phenoxymethyl penicillin. Penicillin V or phenoxymethyl penicillin. Yan. So, parang sila yung pinaka-classic ng mga penicillins. Para saan sila ginagamit? Later on. Dito naman tayo sa next class of drugs. Ang next class of drugs, those for very narrow spectrum penicillinase-resistant drugs. So, mas manarrow yung spectrum but kaya niya nang tumalab against Staphylococcus aureus. Kaya nga, ang tawag sa kanya is also known as, they're also known as anti-staphylococcal penicillins. They are active against both Staphylococci and Streptococci and they are resistant to the staphylococcal beta-lactamases. However, dahil matagal na sila, luma na silang gamot, matagal na ginagamit clinically, nagkaroon na ng resistance against these penicillins. Halimbawa kasi ng isang very narrow spectrum penicillin-resistant drug is methicillin. So meron na tayong strains of bacteria na resistant to methicillin. Example, MRSA. No, so MRSA stands for methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Meron din tayong tinatawag na MRSE, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus epidermidis. Right? So itong methicillin-resistant organisms na to, resistant din to other classes of drugs like oxacillin and nafcillin. Lahat kasi sila mga very narrow spectrum. Sige. Alright. And thirdly, hindi pa pala. Second class pa rin to. So, yung mga examples ng anti-staphylococcal penicillins, ang unang na-discover is nafcillin. Followed by the isoxazoline penicillins, oxacillin, cloxacillin, and decloxacillin. So, kaya nga, kung halimbawa may pigsa ka, boils, furuncles, ano yung unang pwedeng i-reseta sa'yo? Pwedeng cloxacillin, di ba? So, yun. Kasi dapat tumatalab siya against Staphylococcus aureus. Unless yung pigsa mo ay MRSA, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. So, yan. Mamaya malalaman natin anong drug ang option kapag MRSA. Alright. So, narrow spectrum, pero narrow spectrum, now we're on wider spectrum. Wider spectrum, also known as extended spectrum. extended saan? Extended to gram-negative organisms. But ang problema sa kanila, they are susceptible to hydrolysis by beta-lactamases. So there are 3 types of extended spectrum penicillins: aminopenicillins, carboxypenicillins, and uridopenicillins. Ang aminopenicillins, siguro pinaka-familiar kayo, no? Kasi it includes amoxicillin and ampicillin. Ano ba pinagkaiba ng dalawang gamot na yan? Amoxicillin oral, ampicillin IV. Yun lang naman. So, amoxicillin is oral, ampicillin IV. Tapos, they are usually combined with so-called suicide inhibitors. Okay? Ano halimbawa niyan? Clavulanic acid and sulbactam. So, amoxicillin plus potassium clavulanate is also known as coamoxiclav. Coamoxiclav. While ampicillin plus sulbactam sodium is ampisulbactam or brand name Unasyn. So ano yung purpose ng suicide inhibitor? Di ba nabanggit ko kanina, they are penicillinase susceptible? So ang gagawin ng suicide inhibitor, sabihin niya, ako na lang, kami naman, kami na lang ang patayin nyo kaysa doon sa amoxicillin or ampicillin. So yun yung function ng clavulanic acid and sulbactam, thereby having a synergistic effect with amoxicillin and ampicillin. Ay, hindi pala synergistic. I forget the term. Pero, alam mo yun, yung wala siyang effect on its own. Pero kapag in the presence of another drug, napapalakas niya yung other drug na kasama niya. Okay, sige. So, aminopenicillins. Ano yung next type? Carboxypenicillins. Examples, carbonicillin indanyl sodium and ticarcillin. Ticarcillin pwede rin combine with a suicide inhibitor like clavulanic acid. Okay. Third, uridopenicillins. Examples niyan, pinaka na maririnig nyo sa hospital would be piperacillin. Piperacillin in combination with piperacillin tazobactam, no? Yung tazobactam is another suicide inhibitor. Okay, so maririnig niya sa mga wards siguro ang tawag Piptaz, like this, and yung drug na nasa right, no? Yung brand na nasa right, Piptaz. Okay, so generally, ang ibibigay sa wards kapag severe yung sakit ng patient, ampisulbactam, di ba? Pero kapag mas severe pa and we're expecting, for example, resistance, for more severe conditions, ang binibigay is Piptazo, no? Or piperacillin tazobactam. So, ganyan parang hierarchy, no? Okay. So, pag outpatient, siguro Amox. Kapag inpatient, ampisulbactam. Pero kung meron siyang risk factors, kunyari, maraming comorbidities, kunyari, intubated, kunyari, nakahook to the mechanical ventilator, Piptazo, no? So, ganon. Kasi pa-wide ng pa-wide yung kanyang spectrum. Alright. So, sige. But first question, what's the mechanism of action of beta-lactam inhibitors? On a closer detail. Siyempre, pangalan pa lang, alam mo na. They are cell wall synthesis inhibitors. Pero on a closer level, ano yung mechanism niya? Let's look at the cell wall of gram-positive and gram-negative organisms. So, ayan. Meron tinatawag na penicillin-binding proteins. Huh? They are found in the plasma membrane. They are enzymes, and mamaya makita natin ano pangalan ng penicillin, another name for the penicillin-binding protein. But what they do is that they cross-link the peptidoglycans together to form a peptidoglycan layer. Okay? So medyo hindi ka na magtataka, no? Kung bakit mas effective yung mga cell wall synthesis inhibitors generally, especially older ones, against gram-positive organisms. Kasi mas makapal yung peptidoglycan layer ng gram-positive organisms. So sige, tingnan natin at a closer level. Yan. Another name for PBP or penicillin binding protein is transpeptidase. Sige nga, hanapin natin saan nakalagay dyan transpeptidase. Ito, di ba? Itong transpeptidase naka-anchor to the plasma membrane. What transpeptidase does is it forms or cross-links peptidoglycan. Ang structure kasi ng peptidoglycan ganito. Peptidoglycan, meron kang repeating subunits of N-acetylglucosamine and N-acetylmuramic acid. Yan yung nagnam. No? N-acetylglucosamine and acetylmuramic acid. Tapos, sa surface niya, merong mga peptide chains. So proteins. Kasi yung nag at nam, carbohydrates, diba? Pero sa surface niya, meron kang cross-linking or bridges made up of peptides. Tapos sa dulo ng peptides na yon, meron kang dalawang alanine magkatabi. So ang tawag doon, dialanyl, dialanine. Dialanyl, dialanine. Okay? So ginagawang transpeptidase, kinakabit niya yung end na yon to another peptide chain, thus forming cross-links or bridges. Yan lang pinapakita sa figure na to. Okay? So, another way to express the mechanism of action of penicillins is that they inhibit bacterial growth by interfering with the transpeptidation reaction. In other words, they inhibit the enzyme transpeptidase, shown here in the figure on the right. Yung may arrow, no? Transpeptidase, also known as penicillin binding protein. So yun, prevent cross-linking, prevent transpeptidation. That's the mechanism of penicillins. Okay. However, yung mga bacteria, meron silang resistance mechanisms. Kaya nilang lumaban sa antibiotics natin. Nabanggitin natin yung isa doon, di ba? Yung penicillinase. Pero aside from penicillinase, pwede rin mayroon tinatawag na porins. And yun yung pinapakita sa figure na to. Ano yung porins na yan? These are channels that pump out the drug. So for example, pinapakita dito, meron kang amphiphilic drug na kaya tumagos sa cell membrane. Okay? Yung amphiphilic drug na kaya tumagos sa cell membrane, for example, antibiotic, kahit nakapasok na siya sa loob, meron pa rin namang pang-pump palabas. Yun yung mga porins, no? Ang specific example dito is an example of a gram-negative organism, no? Kasi may dalawa nga siyang membrane. Alright, so sige, tuloy natin yung discussion. So, penicillins have drug interactions and should not be given with food except amoxicillin. So, siguro narinig nyo commonly said sa mga nanay or among the lay public na kapag inom ka ng gamot, kumain ka muna. So actually, in some cases, that's not true and actually that's bad because they could lower the absorption of orally taken drugs. Of course, kung nasa ospital ka, kung diretso IV yung gamot mo, wala nang issue doon. Hindi naman siya dadaan sa portal circulation. Hindi naman siya dadaan sa liver. Pero kapag mga oral drugs, especially antibiotics, they should not be given with food except amoxicillin. Okay, except amoxicillin. Sabi pa dito, meron siyang drug interaction that they should be administered with probenecid. Now, what's probenecid? Probenecid is a drug for gout or gouty arthritis. Ginagawa ng probenecid is an organic anion transporter inhibitor. So, ginagawa niya, essentially, it prevents the excretion of penicillin in the urine. So, meron para siyang desired na drug interaction. Kapag binigay mo yung penicillin, together with probenecid, tataas yung levels mo of penicillin. So, para magiging mas effective siya. Okay? So, yun yung gusto kong i-point out there. Drug interactions with food and with other drugs like probenecid. Yung isa gusto mo i-prevent yung interaction with food, pero yung interaction with probenecid, gusto mo actually i-promote. Alright? Sige. So, nabanggit ko na to, di ba? Yung mga suicide inhibitors ang tawag ko kanina. They are actually known chemically as beta-lactamase inhibitors. Beta-lactamase inhibitors because they inhibit the enzyme beta-lactamase. Beta-lactamase cuts up the beta-lactam ring. Yun nandun sa pinaka-first slide pa. Yun yun. So, yung mga examples natin, clavulanic acid, found in coamoxiclav, di ba? Sulbactam, ampisulbactam, tazobactam, piperacillin, tazobactam. Right. So, on their own, these beta-lactamase inhibitors have very weak antibacterial action. Hindi mo siya pwede ibigay as antibiotics on their own. What they do is that they only protect hydrolyzable penicillins from inactivation by beta-lactamases. Sige. Alright. So, pag tinan niyo yung structure niya, beta-lactam din sila actually. No? Pag titignan mo to, meron din siya ng square na beta-lactam ring, yung 4-membered ring containing nitrogen. Yan. So, tingnan nyo lang, appreciate it. Just to make connections in your brain, no? hindi naman ibig sabihin na lalabas yan sa exam. Right. So sige, so what are the clinical uses of these penicillins? So start tayo dun sa PenG. Ano nga siya? Narrow, very narrow, or wide? Narrow, di ba? Pero hydrolyzable. PenG. It's the drug of choice for these infections. Streptococci, meningococci, enterococci, penicillin susceptible pneumococci, etc. etc. Basahin na lang. Pero ang ipo-point out ko at this point is that tumatalab din sila against Treponema pallidum. Ano yung sakit na kinukos ng Treponema pallidum? Syphilis. So until now, the humble PenG is still the drug of choice for Treponema pallidum. Ano pa isang po-point out ko? Clostridium. Clostridium na spore-forming organism, pwede rin effective doon ang penicillin G. Right? Sige. Ito namang benzathine penicillin G, it's effective treatment for beta hemolytic streptococcal pharyngitis, so strep throat, no? And syphilis. So same din, kasi nga, ano lang yan, benzathine formulation. Pag sabing benzathine, it's a depot formulation of PenG. So intramuscularly binibigay. Yan. So drug of choice for syphilis, as well as streptococcal pharyngitis. Naalala nyo ba kung ano yung streptococcal pharyngitis na yan? Yan yung bata may sore throat. Tapos, eventually, gagaling. Pero susunod, babalik, magpa-follow up. Either meron ng heart disease, rheumatic heart disease, or meron ng kidney injury, no? So, yan. Yan. Siya yung drug of choice doon. Benzathine PenG. Alright. Next, we're moving on to the isoxazoline penicillins. Ano nga ulit sila? Narrow, very narrow, or wide? Very narrow, di ba? Isoxazoline penicillins, oxazoline, cloxazoline, and dicloxazoline. Mild to moderate localized staphylococcal infections like mga pigsa-pigsa na hindi MRSA. Okay. Now we're moving on to the wide spectrum. Wide spectrum, di ba? Tatlo nga. Yan yung una, aminopenicillins, amoxicillin, and ampicillin. They are the most active of the oral beta-lactam antibiotics against penicillin-resistant pneumococci. Para saan? Para sa mga respiratory tract infections, no? And UTIs. UTIs, sinusitis, otitis, and even lower respiratory tract infections, yung mga pneumonias. Right. Yan. And ang amoxicillin, ibinibigay siya in combination with other agents in a so-called triple or quadruple therapy to eradicate Helicobacter pylori. What's Helicobacter pylori? It's the organism or the bacteria that's actually responsible for many cases of peptic ulcer disease. So halimbawa, yung patient nyo, hindi gumagaling yung peptic ulcer niya, sa omeprazole lang. Tapos, yun, pabalik-balik. One of the possible reasons for that is that they may have Helicobacter pylori. Kaya kailangan mo bigay ng antibiotic on top of the H2 blocker, no? So, hindi lang sapat na kontrolin yung acid secretion. Dapat meron ng antibiotic kapag merong H. pylori yung person with peptic ulcer disease. Okay, sige, next. Aminopenicillins pa rin tayo, di ba? Pero this time, ampicillin na, which is IV, given intravenously. Ampicillin is effective for shigellosis. It's also the treatment of used for the treatment of serious infections caused by penicillin-susceptible organisms, including anaerobes, enterococci, listeria, and all of this. So, basahin na lang. Ang point out ko lang dyan, important, listeria. Nag-work yung ampicillin against listeria. And of course, shigellosis. Okay. Second type of wide-spectrum penicillins, yung carbenicillin. Carbenicillin is an option for UTI caused by these complicated organisms, no? Pseudomonas, Proteus, or E. coli. Pero hindi naman siya ang drug of choice. So, lagay lang natin dyan for completion. Lastly, we have the uridopenicillins, piperacillin, ticarcillin, and meslocillin. They are the treatment of pneumonias for the treatment of pneumonias associated with complicating factors. So kapag severe pneumonia, kapag complicated pneumonia, for example, patients with cystic fibrosis, those hooked to a mechanical ventilator, ang option mo na, urido-penicillin, like piperacillin, possibly in combination with tazobactam, so pip-tazo. Alright. So sige, yun yung uses ng mga different kinds of penicillins. Now, ano yung mga kailangan nating malaman na side effects nila? So, by the way, kapag nagme-memorize pala ng antibiotics, no? Ano yung mga dapat tandaan? Siyempre, yung suffix, yung para mo siya makikilala, na kahit hindi mo alam yung gamot na to, pag nakita mo yung sounds like niya, dapat malaman mo kanong class siya. Tapos, next na dapat malaman, mechanism of action. And aside from that, lastly, yung mga other notes about the drugs. Specifically, yung notes na yon, kasama doon yung mga side effects. Kasi, tapos, ganito kasi yan. Yung mga side effects, di ba, paulit-ulit naman yan. Sabi nga nila, kapag hindi mo alam yung side effects, sabihin mo, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Kasi, non-specific yun. Di ba? Pero, ang dapat tandaan, ang mahalagang tandaan, high yield side effects. Yung mga doon lang sa class na yon makikita. So kapag na-experience yun ng patient, mapipinpoint mo na, baka it's because they're taking this class of medications. Okay, so sa penicillin, ano yung side effect na yon? Sa penicillin, allergic reactions. Tapos, it could cause actually a wide range of allergic reactions. Hindi lang type 1. Nakalagay sa slide natin, type 1 lang, di ba? Pero actually, all kinds of immune responses could be involved. Pwedeng hypersensitivity type 1, type 2, type 3, or even type 4. Okay? So kaya nga sa history taking, isa sa mga mahalagang tanungin is, meron po ba kayong allergy sa penicillin? Kasi kapag allergic na siya to one penicillin, it's very likely na allergic na rin siya to other kinds of penicillins. So, ka na magbigay nun unless gusto mong malagay sa panganib yung buhay ng patient. No? Okay. Alright. So, sa ampicillin and amoxicillin, meron tayong tinatawag na non-allergic rashes. So, it's not because of an allergy, it's a direct effect of the drug. It causes morbilliform eruptions on the extremities, described as symmetrical, erythematous, confluent, and maculopapular. Okay? Sa ampicillin, meron din tayong tinatawag na pseudomembranous colitis. Marami nagkukos ng pseudomembranous colitis na yan actually. Pero isama na lang dyan, sa listahan na yun, yung ampicillin. Ano ba yung pseudomembranous colitis? Pseudomembranous colitis is a condition caused when antibiotics kill the natural microbiota of our digestive tract. No? So, yun, pwede nagtatay yung patient, pwede may diarrhea, and one of the causes of that is antibiotic intake, for example, by ampicillin. Okay? So, sige. Alright. Just to complete our list, nafcillin could cause neutropenia. Pwede bumagsak ang WBC count, specifically yung neutrophils sa differentials. Oxacillin could cause hepatitis, while methicillin could cause interstitial nephritis. Okay. So now we're moving on from the penicillins to the cephalosporins. As I have mentioned, magkamukha yung kanilang structure. Konting-konti lang na iba, but it causes a big difference in terms of their activity. Now, wow, that's so overwhelming. So actually, pag mag-rememorize ka ng ganyang list, kaya mo lang siyang i-chop-chop. Sabi nila attention span daw ng humans could only memorize around 5 at a time. So kapag ganyan, wag mo memorize ng third generation cephalosporins. Wag mo memorize ng isang diretsyo. Kaya mo i-chop-chop. And when memorizing this, pipili ka lang ng mga pinaka may encounter mo sa clinics. Ipo-point out ko in a bit. Pero ganito muna yung point. The point is, kaya dinevelop yung iba't ibang generations of cephalosporins to improve their spectrum of activity. So yung first generation cephalosporins, doon muna sila sa gram-positive organisms. Okay? Gram-positive organisms sila pinaka-effective. But as we move further to the higher classes of drugs, to the second, third, fourth, and fifth, bumababa yung activity niya sa gram-positive and nag-i-improve sa gram-negative. So that's a trend I would like you to remember. First, gram-positive. As you go higher, mako-cover yung gram-negative. Okay, including mga Pseudomonas. So, anong mahalagang tandaan dyan? May mnemonic ka ba dyan? Meron ako mnemonic. Share ko sa inyo. It may work with you or not. Kabahala kayo kung ano yung makatulong sa inyo. Pero kapag first generation cephalosporins, ang dapat tandaan, kapag may pH, kapag spelling niya, cephalexin, tas pH instead of F, first generation yon. Okay? First generation. Tapos, dalawang tinatandaan ko dyan, cephalexin and cefazolin. Cephalexin and cefazolin. Sa second generation naman, ang mnemonic ko is Pak-Fox-Fur. Pak-Fox-Fur. Pak-4, cefaclor. Pax-4, cefoxitin. And Fur-4, cefuroxime. So, cefaclor, cefoxitin, cefuroxime. Okay? Cefaclor, cefoxitin, cefuroxime. Sa third generation, ang mnemonic. Third, 3, try. Ceftriaxone, ceftriaxone, and cefixime. Try to fix. Ceftriaxone, cefixime. And lastly, sa fourth, isa naman mahalaga dyan, cefepime. Okay? Yan. Yung fifth, hindi masyado lumalabas sa exams, pero dadaanan natin. So, first, second, third, and fourth generation. Sige. Ano yung differences nila? Of course, differences in structure pa din. Nilagay ko lang dito para kung ma-curious kayo habang nag-review, pwede nyo i-check. But, hindi lalabas sa exam. Okay? Yan. Tingnan lang natin. Next slide. So, first generation have good activity against gram-positive, but not against gram-negative. Ang second generation, increased activity against gram-negative. So, these drugs are already effective against Haemophilus influenzae, and ito naman, iba, sa B. fragilis. Third generation, less active na against gram-positive, but more active against Enterobacteriaceae. Specifically, yung mga beta-lactamase-producing strains. Yung mga, meron tayong mga methicillin-resistant, hindi pa pala yun. So, mga beta-lactamase-producing strains. For example, ceftazidime is already active against Pseudomonas aeruginosa. So, pwede rin siya tawagin na anti-pseudomonal cephalosporin. And lastly, fourth generation is extended even further, and they have increased stability from hydrolysis by beta-lactamases. Sige. So, para saan sila ginagamit? Yung first generation cephalosporins are excellent agents for skin and soft tissue infections owing to Staphylococcus aureus and Streptococcus pyogenes. So, because of that, yung isang cephalosporin natin na first generation is the drug of choice for surgical prophylaxis. So, halimbawa, operahan yung pasyente. Kailangan siyang bigyan nitong antibiotic na to para hindi siya magkaroon ng surgical site infections. Kasi pag naghumiwa ka, pwedeng ma-expose yung site na yon to the skin microbiota, in which part yung Staphylococcus aureus, diba? Okay, and ito yun. Cefazolin is the drug of choice for surgical prophylaxis. Next, yung second generation cephalosporins, more active against Haemophilus influenzae and Moraxella cataralis. So, saan nga bang mga infections yan mahalaga? Yung Haemophilus influenzae, for example, doon sa mga respiratory tract infections. So, makita nyo dyan, sinusitis, otitis, and even lower respiratory tract infections. So, for example, specifically, under the second generation cephalosporins, itong cefoxitin, cefotetan, and cefmetazole, they are used for the treatment of mixed anaerobic infections such as peritonitis and diverticulitis. Okay? Ano ba yung anaerobic infections? Kasi yung anaerobes, they are clinically significant for infection kapag involved yung ating GI tract. No? GI tract. Kaya itong peritonitis and diverticulitis are infections in our digestive tract. Specifically, kapag sabi peritonitis, it's inflammation of the peritoneum. While diverticulitis is inflammation of a diverticulum, for example, which is an outpouching of the large intestine. Yes, sige. So itong mga cefoxitin, cefotetan, and cefmetazole, are useful specifically for anaerobic infections. Okay. Saan tayo? Foxfer. Second generation pa rin, di ba? Ang cefuroxime naman is active against beta-lactamase producing H. influenzae or Klebsiella pneumoniae and penicillin-resistant pneumococci. So yung mga organisms na yon are causative agents of community-acquired pneumonia or CAP. So ang cefuroxime is a drug of choice, is a drug used for the treatment of community-acquired pneumonia. Okay, so tapos na tayo sa first and second generation. Now let's move on to the third generation. Third generation drug of choice for those caused by Klebsiella, Enterobacter, Proteus, Providencia, Serratia, and Haemophilus. Okay? Also effective against beta-lactamase producing strains of Haemophilus and Neisseria. Pwede rin silang ibigay for neutropenic febrile immunocompromised patients. Sino ba yung mga yon? Yung pag sinabi natin neutropenic febrile immunocompromised patients. So halimbawa, bata with leukemia, a child with leukemia given chemotherapy. Neutropenic yon, di ba? Mababa yung kanyang WBC count na effective na yung mga nag-work na neutrophils niya. Tapos, biglang nilagnat. Hindi mo alam kung ano yung cause technically. You could give a third generation cephalosporin. Okay? Meron kasi tayong tinatawag na clinical entity or sakit na ang tawag FEBNEUT, febrile neutropenia. Someone immunocompromised, kunyari may HIV/AIDS, tapos biglang bagsak ang neutrophils, tapos biglang nilagnat. Pwede kang magbigay ng gamot for those patients. It's a type of infection actually. Okay. So, third generation cephalosporins, focus tayo sa ceftriaxone. Ceftriaxone is the drug of choice for gonorrhea and severe forms of Lyme disease. So, maka-encounter kayo niyan sa clinics. Remember na ang UTI sa lalaki is always complicated. No? Always complicated. So, mas likely, mas mataas yung chance na sexually transmitted illness yon kapag nag-complain siya ng totoong UTI symptoms. Kasi ang babae, yung mga may classic na asymptomatic na symptoms, ay yung mga mild symptoms, like yung caused by E. coli. So, kapag ang lalaki merong UTI, especially if meron tinatawag na tayo na tulo, no? Or gonorrhea, you could give ceftriaxone. Single dose lang, intramuscularly. Okay? Next, cefotaxime and ceftriaxone, they are the drug of choice for these organisms, H. influenzae, sensitive strep pneumo, and meningitis, and gram-negative enterobacteria. So they are the most active against penicillin-resistant strains of pneumococci. So option is left for the treatment of community-acquired pneumonia. Ceftazidime naman is the drug of choice for Pseudomonas meningitis because it has good penetration to the blood-brain barrier. Okay. Lastly, hindi pa pala lastly, second to the last, the fourth generation cephalosporins. Sa sobrang wide ng kanyang spectrum of activity, even if hindi mo alam yung causative agent, halimbawa, yung patient naka-confine sa hospital, sa wards for a long time, tapos biglang, takipnik, biglang nahihirapan huminga, isa sa mga options na pwede mo ibigay are the fourth generation cephalosporins. So yung tinatawag natin na empirical treatment of nosocomial infections. Kapag sinabi kasing nosocomial, nakuha sa ospital. No? Halimbawa, hospital-acquired pneumonia. Okay? Tapos, kapag sinabi namang empirical versus definitive, pag empirical, hindi mo pa alam yung specific na causative agent, pwede ka nang magbigay ng antibiotic. Definitive, kapag halimbawa, lumabas na yung results ng culture, doon mo, iti-tailor yung gamot mo. Okay? Alright. So, fourth generation cephalosporins, bakit siya pwede ibigay sa nosocomial patients? Kasi sa ospital, maltitindi, no? Makapangyarihan yung mga bacteria doon. Karamihan sa kanila, merong resistance. Karamihan sa kanila, merong beta-lactamases. Kaya, hindi ka pwede mabigay ng putyo-putyong gamot lang, no? Kapag hospital-acquired na infection. So, dapat, kapag hindi mo pa alam yung causative agent, tapos malala yung sakit ng pasyente mo, you could give a fourth generation cephalosporin. Ano example niyan? Cefepime. Isa lang naman yung mahalagang tandaan ng fourth generation, sa totoo lang, it's just Cefepime. Kaya makita nyo yung mga sa ward, yung mga na-confine na malala ang sakit, maraming naka-Cefepime. Okay, so sige. It is highly active against Haemophilus and Neisseria. It has good activity against Pseudomonas, Enterobacteriaceae, Staph aureus, and Strep pneumo. It has good activity against most penicillin-resistant strains of Streptococci. Right. However, pwedeng magkaroon ka ng adverse effects, hypersensitivity reactions, and yung non-specific na diarrhea. Okay? Yung cephaloridine could cause renal toxicity. Cefamandole, cefmetazole, cefotetan, cefoperazone, and moxalactam, all of them contain the N-methylthiotetrazole group. And because of that chemical composition, they have two interactions. First, they may cause hypoprothrombinemia and bleeding disorders. So yung mga naka-blood thinners, for example, mga naka-warfarin, mga naka-heparin, pwede tayo maaso ka ng bleeding risk if you give these antibiotics to them. Another is interaction with ethanol. They could cause severe disulfiram-like reactions. Naalala niyo pa ba yung disulfiram? So, reveal natin mabilis. Yung ethanol in the body gets converted to acetaldehyde by the enzyme alcohol dehydrogenase. Acetaldehyde is responsible for the toxic side effects, yung mga hangover symptoms. Yung acetaldehyde gets converted further, dapat, to a state by aldehyde dehydrogenase. However, what disulfiram does is it inhibits the aldehyde dehydrogenase. So, nag-accumulate yung acetaldehyde, leading to more toxic symptoms. So, kapag sinabing disulfiram-like effect, it means these antibiotics could inhibit aldehyde dehydrogenase. Thereby, kapag sinabay mo sila together with alcohol, pwedeng tumaas yung levels of acetaldehyde. Alright. So, sige. Meron ba akong na-miss? Parang may na-miss akong i-discuss. Sige. Penicillins and cephalosporins, diba? So, halimbawa, sinabi ng patient na allergic siya, nagkaroon na siya ng allergic reaction before to penicillin. Tapos gusto mo mag-reseta ng cephalosporin. Ano yung next na follow-up question mo? Ang next na follow-up question is dapat, ano bang type ng reaction yung nangyari? No? Kasi, kapag mild lang, for example, nagkaroon ng rashes due to penicillin, amoxicillin, pwede ka pa rin magbigay ng cephalosporin. So, you could take that risk. However, paano kapag sinabi niya, nagkaroon po ako ng anaphylaxis, biglang bumagsak yung BP ko, biglang nahirapan ako huminga. Ayun. Kapag ganon, biglang kailangan isugod sa ospital. Kapag ganon, wag mo nang i-risk. No? So, medyo tinitimbang mo yung cross-reactivity between amoxicillin or yung mga penicillins and the cephalosporins. Okay. So, yun. Alright, so now let's complete our discussion of beta-lactams. Kasi dalawa pa lang na class of beta-lactams na discuss natin, di ba? Penicillins and cephalosporins pa lang yon. Now, let's move on to the other beta-lactam drugs, specifically monobactams and carbapenems. Monobactam contains a monocyclic beta-lactam ring. Balikan niyo yung figure mamaya. Makikita nyo, yung square lang siya. Yung four-membered beta-lactam ring lang nandun. Wala yung katabi niya na parang mas malaking ring. Kaya siya monobactam. Kasi monocyclic. So it's resistant to most beta-lactamases. It's active against gram-negative rods, including Pseudomonas and Serratia. Okay, monobactam, resistant to most beta-lactamases. So doon pa lang, meron na siyang malaking advantage over the penicillins, diba? Kasi kanina, nakita nyo, marami doon sa penicillins, penicillinase susceptible. So one example of a monobactam is Aztreonam. Oh, by the way, before I continue my discussion, saan ba nanggagaling most of the antibiotics? Sa halaman ba? Actually, ang sagot is, hindi. Ang antibiotics nanggagaling din sa karamihan sa bacteria. And in some, sa fungi. So, Penicillium notatum, fungus yon. Pero, yung ibang bacteria, parang ginagamit siya as a way to signal other bacteria na, ay, teritoryo ko to. No? So, yon. So, para siyang defense against kakompete na bacteria. Yun yung biological role of some of these antibiotics actually. So they weren't really originally made for killing technically. So anyway, ba't ko naalala yun? Naalala ko yun kasi it's shown here that Astreonam is isolated from a bacterium, specifically Chromobacterium violaceum. It resembles aminoglycosides in activity. Ano yung aminoglycoside? Aminoglycoside, as you will learn in the second half of this lecture, is a protein synthesis inhibitor. Okay, a protein synthesis inhibitor that has a coverage for gram-negative organisms. Aside from that, Astreonam may be used as an alternative to cephalosporins for the treatment of meningitis caused by gram-negative bacilli. It rarely causes allergic reactions in patients with a history of type 1 hypersensitivity to other beta-lactam antibiotics. So ito yung isa sa mga option na pwede nyo ibigay kapag yung patient is allergic already to penicillins or cephalosporins. Pwede kang magbigay ng Astreonam. Okay. After that, isa lang yung monobactam, di ba? Astreonam. Let's move on to the carbapenems. Meron tayong tatlo here. Imipenem, meropenem, ertapenem. Paano makikilala? Nasa pangalan nila, may penem, no? Penem. Okay. Carbapenem is the beta-lactam of choice for Enterobacter infections. It's also the drug of choice for extended spectrum beta-lactamase producing gram-negative organisms. Adverse effects, marami. Pero generally, non-specific, except sa imipenem, pwedeng mag-cause ng seizures. Okay? Imipenem has good activity against gram-negative, gram-positive, and anaerobes. Okay, and this is an important point. Yung imipenem, it gets acted upon in the kidneys, in the renal tubules, by enzymes called dehydropeptidases. Dehydropeptidases. Ginagawa ng dehydropeptidase, it inactivates imipenem, so bababa ng efficacy niya, and aside from that, it forms a toxic substrate, a toxic product. It forms a toxic product that is toxic against the kidneys. So double whammy, no? Pinababa na niya yung efficacy, antibiotic efficacy ng imipenem, nagkaroon ka pa ng toxic na byproduct. So, kailangan inhibit yung dehydropeptidase. Ang pang-inhibit ng dehydropeptidase is this compound called cilastatin. Okay? So, yung mga preparation sa ospital, pag tinignan mo, ano yung gamot na yon? It's imipenem cilastatin. Okay, imipenem cilastatin. Cilastatin is for the inhibition of dehydropeptidases. Right. Clarification. Di ba ang isa sa mga in-emphasize ko sa inyo sa pharmacology is to how to recognize drugs by their name. However, meron kasi limitations yon. Hindi naman kasi lahat ng magkatunog, same class of drugs. And ang example niyan ay ang cilastatin. Kasi cilastatin is not a statin. Weirdly enough. No? So, hindi siya hydroxymethylglutaril coenzyme E reductase. Hindi niya kaya pababain yung LDL mo. No? So, yon. Baka lang ma-confuse kayo kasi sa pangalan niya. But imipenem, cilastatin is not a statin, is a dehydropeptidase inhibitor given in combination with imipenem. Okay. Let's get next. So another option aside from imipenem is meropenem. Meropenem is similar to imipenem but has greater activity against gram-negative and less activity against gram-positive. Ang advantage lang nila, they are not degraded by renal dehydropeptidase. So hindi ka lang ibigay ang meropenem together with cilastatin. Ang cilastatin binibigay lang sa imipenem together with imipenem. Okay. Imipenem, meropenem, ertapenem this time. Ertapenem is less active than imipenem or meropenem against Pseudomonas aeruginosa and Acinetobacter. Advantage lang, again, not degraded by renal dehydropeptidases. But before we move on, ano ang function ng carbapenems? Ang carbapenems, sa sobrang wide ng activity nila, pwede rin silang empiric therapy for those with severe illness. So pag dumaan kayo sa ward ngayon, for whatever reason, tingnan niyo yung mga chart, marami daw patients na naka-intubate na naka-imipenem. Or whatever carbapenem, pwede rin meropenem. No? Most likely kapag ganon, hindi pa nila alam, hindi pa lumalabas yung culture results. So wala pa silang definitive therapy. Alright. Sige. Yun lang lahat ng beta-lactams. Pakitabi sa ating utak. Ano yung apat na yon? Penicillins, cephalosporins, monobactams, carbapenems. Penicillins, 3 types, di ba? Very narrow, narrow, wide. Cephalosporins, 4 or 5 generations. Tapos, monobactam, isa lang yon, aztreonam. Carbapenem, imipenem, meropenem, ertapenem. Pero yung imipenem given with cilastatin. Okay, tabi na yan. Sa ating utak, so nasa ulo na natin yan. Next, let's complete other drugs that work on the cell envelope. So madami, no? Vancomycin, teicoplanin, daptomycin, phosphomycin trometamol, bacitracin, and cycloserine. Okay. So ito, mamaya malalaman natin yung class of drugs called aminoglycosides. Yung ending nila, meron ding mycin sa dulo. But don't be confused. Sa ulawin ninyo yung mga drugs na nag-end sa mycin but hindi aminoglycosides. Hindi aminoglycosides. Kasi these drugs na nasa sa harapan ninyo ngayon, like vancomycin, daptomycin, phosphomycin trometamol, and bacitracin are all cell wall synthesis inhibitors. They do not have any activity against protein synthesis. Okay? So yan. Mag-start tayo sa pinaka-important dyan. Pinaka-important dyan actually is vancomycin. Bakit siya important? Kasi, di ba nabanggit ko sa inyo kanina yung MRSA, methicillin-resistant Staph aureus? Ang next level niyan is vancomycin. So kapag merong MRSA, magbibigay ka ng vancomycin. However, ang problem, meron ding VRSA. Ano yung VRSA? VRSA is vancomycin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. So kapag may VRSA, ano pang ibibigay mo? Next, sa next half ng lecture natin, what is linezolid? Okay, so, methicillin, vancomycin, linezolid. Okay, so vancomycin, as always, as of course, as usual, is produced by another bacteria, specifically Streptococcus orientalis. It's active only against gram-positive bacteria, specifically Staphylococci, but it's a big advantage actually because it's effective against MRSA. Okay? In terms of mechanism of action, i-compare and contrast natin sa beta-lactams. Naalala nyo pa yung beta-lactams? Anong ini-inhibit niya na enzyme? Di ba? Transpeptidase, also known as penicillin-binding protein. This time, ang ini-inhibit ng vancomycin is transglycosylase. Transglycosylase. May figure tayo mamaya in a bit. But specifically, ang tina-target niya is yung part na merong N-acetylglucosamine and N-acetylmuramic acid, yung may NAGNAM chains. Hindi siya nag-work dun sa dialanyl-dialanin side masyado. Pakita ko na lang. Ganito yan. So sa letter A, natin yung figure A sa taas. Ang transglycosylases daw, ipinapagkabit yung repeating units of NAG and NAM together. Ayan o. Pero if you give vancomycin, it inhibits that process. In contrast, dito sa figure B, tingnan nyo kung ano yung part na nagdidikit. Hindi yung NAG and NAM. Ang nagdidikit na part, yung peptide chains. Yung pentapeptide chain na tinatawag. Pentapeptide kasi 5 peptides. So yung pentapeptide chain na merong dialanyl-dialanin, yun yung natatarget ng beta-lactam agents. Right? Tingnan yun So sige. Vancomycin merong IV at merong oral. Yung IV binibigay for sepsis. Ano ba yung sepsis? It's a systemic blood-borne infection. Pwede rin ibigay sa endocarditis, but ang important doon is it's given kapag ang cause is MRSA, MRSA, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Kapag binigay orally yung vancomycin, hindi siya ma-absorb. But effective pa rin siya kung yung infection is located doon sa gut localized, no? So kung doon lang siya sa gut na infection, halimbawa, enterocolitis caused by Clostridium difficile, yung C. diff na tinatawag, no? Pwede ka magbigay ng vancomycin doon. By the way, familiar naman kayo sa C. diff enterocolitis? Funny siya kasi, no, magkaka-C. diff ka. Ang C. diff kasi is an opportunistic organism. So, halimbawa, yung take ka ng antibiotic na broad spectrum, namatay lahat ng normal microbiota sa tiyan mo, sa large intestine mo. Ang mangyayari, pwedeng magkaroon ng overgrowth ng opportunistic organisms like C. diff. So, yung problema niyo na kinos ng antibiotic, pwede mo ibigay na gamot is another antibiotic, which is vancomycin. So, yung vancomycin could be used for C. diff, enterocolitis, na pwedeng caused by another antibiotic. Okay? So, sige. Merong important na adverse effect na mahalagang tandaan sa vancomycin. And that's called the red man or the redneck syndrome. Bakit red? Kasi mapula. Bakit mapula? Kasi merong release of histamine. And take note that it's an infusion-related type of flushing. Specifically, the speed of infusion. The dose doesn't matter so much. It's actually the speed of infusion of vancomycin. So how can you prevent that? You could prevent that by prolonging the infusion period to 1 to 2 hours, increasing the dosing interval. So actually, yung infusion period na yun, so dapat, wag mo mamadaliin. So pag may nangialam, dapat bantayan mo yung swero ng pasyente mo. Kasi pag may nangialam doon, pag bilang binilisan, kasi sabihin ng bantay, ang bagal naman ng patak niyan, gagaling ba yung pasyente namin yan? Kasi bilang binilisan, ay pwede ka magkaroon ng side effect, red man or redneck syndrome, no? Caused by the release of histamine due to a fast infusion of vancomycin. Okay. Next we have teicoplanin. It's a glycopeptide antibiotic similar to vancomycin in mechanism of action and antibacterial spectrum. Next, we have daptomycin. Daptomycin this time is a cyclic lipopeptide. Tingnan yung figure sa lower left, yung kulay green background. Cyclic kasi, paikot yung amino acids, no? So it's a cyclic chain of protein. Tapos sa dulo, meron nakabit na decanoic acid, which is a lipid, kaya lipopeptide. So daptomycin is a fermentation product of Streptomyces rhoeosporus, another bacteria. Similar yung activity niya to vancomycin except it's more rapidly bactericidal and it's effective against VRSA and VRSE. So daptomycin is another option aside from linezolid for VRSA. Okay? Okay. Ano yung pinapakita dyan sa figure? Pinapakita lang sa figure na bumubutas siya ng cell membrane, no? So daptomycin, in the presence of calcium, forms a pore, leading to the death of the bacteria. Okay, next. Phosphomycin trometamol. Siguro narinig nyo na to before if nagka-UTI na kayo, yung mga babae. Kasi it's given for uncomplicated cases of UTI. It works by inhibiting enol pyruvate transferase by binding to the cysteine residue of the active site and blocking the addition of phosphoenol pyruvate to UDP and acetylglucosamine. Okay? It's active against both gram-positive and gram-negative, used for uncomplicated lower UTI in women. Next, we have bacitracin, a cyclic peptide obtained from the bacteria Bacillus subtilis. Active against gram-positive, it inhibits cell wall formation by interfering with dephosphorylation in cycling of the lipid carrier that transfers peptidoglycan subunits to the growing cell wall. Okay? Bacitracin could be used in combination with other drugs like polymyxin and neomycin. When used together with that, they could be used to suppress mixed bacterial flora and surface lesions of the skin in wounds or on mucous membrane. So halimbawa, yung mga mayroong may sugat or yung mga mayroong second degree burn, pwede bigyan ng mga pamahid containing bacitracin in combination with polymyxin or neomycin. Aside from that, bacitracin is useful for the irrigation of joints, wounds, or the pleural cavity. And take note that it's only given topically. So doon lang siya sa mga sugat-sugat na superficial because it's highly nephrotoxic actually. So masama siya for the kidneys. Next we have cycloserine, produced by Streptomyces orchidaceus. Ang mahalagang matandaan naman dito sa cycloserine, yung kanyang mechanism of action. Kasi, tandaan niyo yung dialanyl-dialanin. Okay? Yung dialanyl-dialanin, kung mapapansin niyo, kakaiba siya. Kasi ano ba, sa humans, ano ba yung isomeric form ng mga amino acids? Di ba lahat L? Lahat ng monosaccharide sa humans ay D. Lahat ng amino acids sa humans ay L. So sa bacteria, meron silang D peptides, yung D-alanine. And ang gumagawa nun, ang nag-cause ng racemic reaction na yon is alanine racemase. Okay? So ang ginagawa ng cycloserine, it inhibits alanine racemase, thus preventing the incorporation of D-alanine to the peptidoglycan pentapeptide. Okay? So take note, in a way similar siya sa beta-lactam, pero instead of the transpeptidase reaction yung na-inhibit, ang cycloserine ang na-inhibit sa kanya, alanine racemase. Alanine racemase. Okay? Sige. Ang cycloserine, ang mahalagang tandaan nyo na activity niya, is a second-line agent for Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Nandun sa lecture natin for tomorrow yung drugs for TB. At makita nyo doon na nasa second-line agents, cycloserine. Paano ang action? Against racemase. Okay? Alanine racemase. Yung mga dose-related side effects niya are related to the central nervous system, such as headaches, tremors, psychosis, and convulsions. Alright. So at this point, I'm going to make a distinction. Bactericidal versus bacteriostatic. Pag sinabing bactericidal, pumapatay ng bacteria. Bacteriostatic, tumitigal sa growth ng bacteria. Para siya nag-freeze. No? Freeze. Hindi naman talagang freeze. Pero pinapatigil niya yung growth. Pero, linawin lang natin ibig sabihin ba nun, bactericidal, more effective than bacteriostatic? Hindi necessarily, no? Hindi naman necessarily ganun. So anong point nito? Medyo academic lang siya ng distinction. We need to memorize which ones are bactericidal and which ones are bacteriostatic. One generalization I could give you is that all cell wall synthesis generally inhibitors are bactericidal. Later, yung mga protein synthesis inhibitor, all are generally bacteriostatic. Pero ibig sabihin ba nun, mas effective yung isa, yung cell wall synthesis kaysa sa protein synthesis? Wala namang ganon, no? Walang ganon. Okay. Alright. We're done with all of the cell wall synthesis inhibitors. So itabi na natin yon. So di ba 5? Cell wall, protein, folic acid, DNA, mycobacteria. Mycobacteria, bukas. Cell wall synthesis, tapos na. Dito tayo sa number 2, protein synthesis inhibitor. Okay? Tapos, sa prokaryotes, ang components of their ribosomes are 30S and 50S. Together, those subunits form a 70S ribosome. Okay? Ba't hindi additive? Kasi yung S doon is Wedberg unit. Parang is an experimental unit Okay? So, 30 plus 50 equals 70. Sa humans, 40 plus 60 equals 80. Okay. So, ang mnemonic na ibibigay ko sa inyo, bago tayo mag-start is, buy at 30, sell at 50. Para hindi ka lugi sa negosyo. No? Buy at 30, sell at 50. Bibilin mo, 30, bebenta mo, dapat may tubo ka, 50. Okay? So, anong sabihin ng mnemonic na yon? It's because these drugs, aminoglycosides and tetracyclines, are the ones that act on the 30S subunit of ribosomes. While yung mga others, chloramphenicol, macrolides like erythromycin, the lincosamide clindamycin, linezolid, as well as yung mga paisa-isang drugs like streptogramins, quinapristine, dalfapristine, Lahat yon, everything else are 50S. So, ang gusto ko lang matandaan ninyo, kahit yung by at 30 lang, no? Aminoglycosides and tetracyclines work on the 30S ribosomal subunit. Sige. Let's start for this first half of our lecture sa part 1, yung aminoglycosides. Tapos mamaya sa lecture natin in a few minutes, yung the rest of these protein synthesis inhibitors. Okay. Look at this figure. Ano yung pinapakita niyan? That's ang mga options natin. Is it DNA replication? Is it translation? Or is it transcription? That is transcription. No? Pinapakita dyan yung ay, mali pala tuloy ako. Translation. So, replication, transcription, translation. That's actually translation. So, yung RNA, ginagawa na kino-convert yung mRNA na nanggaling sa nucleus, lumabas na sa cytoplasm, now nasa rough endoplasmic reticulum, gumagawa ng protein. As I have mentioned, mayroong dalawang subunits, 30S and 50S, and they form a translation complex. Okay? So, gaganyan sila. Mag-combine sila to form a 70S subunit ribosome. Tapos yung mRNA, papasok. Ang ribosome kasi natin, may tatlong sites yan. A, P, E. Acceptor, peptide, or peptidyl, and exit site. Exit site, doon na lumalabas, no? So yung acceptor, doon papasok yung mRNA. Doon din papasok yung loaded tRNA. tRNA na mayroon nakakabit na amino acid. Okay. So, review muna natin yung normal process, no? So, papasok yung mRNA, tapos meron siyang dalang, papasok yung mRNA, dadaan yung tRNA na may lamang amino acid, tapos magmo-move sila, magte-translocate from the acceptor site to the peptidyl side. Okay. Tapos, paano kapag may kailangan ng haba? Paano hahaba yung chain? So, habang nasa P, yung growing chain, papasok ulit yung tRNA sa A site, tapos ililipat from the P to the A site, yung amino acid. Tapos move ulit to the next, sa exit site, nalalabas yung empty tRNA, and so forth and so on, hanggang humaba yung peptide chain, or protein chain. Alright. So, why am I emphasizing that? Kasi, yung mga iba nating, yung mga specific classes of protein synthesis inhibitors natin, nag-work sa specific steps of the translation. No? So, for example, yung aminoglycosides, tingnan nyo, 30S, di ba, ano ba yung dalawang 30S subunit inhibitors? Yung aminoglycosides and tetracyclines. Yung aminoglycosides, nagbabind siya directly to the 30S subunit. In contrast, yung tetracycline, it prevents the binding of tRNA at the acceptor site. So it still binds to the 30S subunit, pero specifically, mas specific siya to prevention of tRNA entry at the acceptor site. Alright. So, yun yung point ko. So, meron pang fine details between the different classes of drugs in terms of their mechanism of action. Okay, kumpletuhin natin yung picture. By at 30, aminoglycosides and tetracyclines. On the one hand, you have the 50S subunit inhibitors. Ano nga ulit yung tatlong yon? Nandito, no? Chloramphenicol, erythromycin, which is a macrolide, and lastly, linezolid. Okay? So, sige. Start with chloramphenicol. Yung chloramphenicol, nagbabind siya sa, ini-inhibit niya yung peptidyl transferase. It inhibits peptidyl transferase. So, siya yung pinipigilan niya yung pag-transfer ng amino acids from the P site to the A site. So, hindi mag-grow yung chain. In contrast, yung macrolides and clindamycin, they inhibit translocation. Yung pag-move ng tRNA from the A site to the P site. Malinaw ba yung distinction na yon? Yung chloramphenicol, ini-inhibit niya yung pag-move ng amino acid. While yung macrolides and clindamycin, inhibit niya yung translocation, yung pag-move ng tRNA. Okay, and lastly, we have linezolid, which binds directly to the 50S ribosomal subunit. Okay, so sige, let's discuss the aminoglycosides. In general, protein synthesis inhibitors are bacteriostatic. Kung ang cell wall synthesis inhibitors, bactericidal, protein synthesis inhibitors, bacteriostatic, except aminoglycosides and streptogramins. Okay? Sige. So kaya hiniwalay ko yung actually aminoglycosides. Kaya i-discuss ko siya dito sa part 1. Kasi bactericidal din siya like cell wall synthesis inhibitors. Okay? So sige. Pi at 30, cell at 50. Alam natin yan. Let's talk about the aminoglycosides. Ang ending nila, mycin. Streptomycin, neomycin, amikacin, gentamicin. But take note, hindi naman ibig sabihin pag mycin, aminoglycoside agad. Halimbawa, vancomycin, hindi yun aminoglycoside. Aminoglycosides, ang coverage niya, gram-negative enteric bacteria. Kung ang cell wall synthesis inhibitors, gram-positive, ang aminoglycosides, gram-negative mostly. Ang tina-target. Tapos ang structure niya, meron siyang rings, numbered Roman numerals 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. Yung rings na yon, those are sugars. Mga asukal yon. Kaya siya glycoside. Aminoglycoside. Tapos tinan nyo pa yung structures nila. Oh, they have amino acid side chains. Kaya aminoglycoside. Okay. So in terms of structure, they have hexose rings. Na usually around 3 rings. Tapos either streptidine in the case of streptomycin or 2-deoxystreptamine and the other aminoglycosides. Various amino sugars are attached by glycosidic linkages to the hexose rings. Bato. Okay na yan. In terms of their mechanism of action, they bind specifically to the 30S ribosomal subunit. So diretso siyang dumidikit dun sa 30S subunit. Okay? Yung streptomycin in particular binds a protein called S12. Yung S12 na protein, part siya ng 30S ribosomal subunit. Okay? Ito. There is an important distinction that we need to learn. Aminoglycosides, together with fluoroquinolones, have what we call a concentration-dependent killing. Aminoglycosides and fluoroquinolones have concentration-dependent killing. Ano ibig sabihin nun? Ibig sabihin, mas mahalaga na ma-reach yung tamang dose kesa yung time na merong sila na merong mataas yung level ng antibiotic sa blood nila. Guess nyo ba yun? Explain ko pa further. So yung kasi concentration-dependent killing, it's compared or contrasted against time-dependent killing. Kapag sinabing time-dependent killing, mahalaga na matagal yung period of time na mataas yung level ng antibiotic na yon sa kanilang blood. Kapag concentration-dependent killing, basta ma-reach yung certain level or concentration of the antibiotic in the blood, okay na yon. I'll give you an example. Halimbawa, nagbigay ka ng amikacin, okay, intravenously. Tapos so nag-rise yung level of antibiotic in the blood. Tapos, bumagsak na, below na sa effective dose. Ano na tinatawag? Bumagsak na sa effective dose, pero nag-work pa rin siya. Hindi pa rin makabawi agad yung bacteria. That's what we call the post-antibiotic effect. So, nawala na, na-clear out na yung antibiotic sa dugo, hindi pa rin makabawi yung bacteria. That's a post-antibiotic effect. That's responsible for the concentration-dependent kinetics of the activity of aminoglycosides. So one way to think about it is, para kang sobrang lakas mo, hindi makabawi agad yung binugbog mong bacteria. Sobrang na-derange yung metabolic processes of your bacteria. Na kahit nawala ng antibiotic, kahit nakaalis ka na takot pa rin siya sa'yo, no? So ganun lang yung point ko doon. So that's what aminoglycosides do. They have a concentration-dependent kinetics. And yung ganyang concentration-dependent kinetics, unique yan to aminoglycosides. as well as fluoroquinolones. In contrast, yung mga penicillins, mga cephalosporins, ang mechanism niya is called time-dependent killing. So, sa time-dependent killing, mahalaga yung tamang pagbigay ng dose, yung timing. Kapag na-miss mo yung dose, babawi yung bacteria nun agad. So, halimbawa, kung naka-ampicillin sulbactam yung pasyente mo, tapos yung nurse sobrang busy na hindi na nabibigay sa tamang timing lahat ng mga gamot, that's problematic actually. Kasi, pwedeng maka-recover yung bacteria and could actually lead to resistance, no? So, yun yung importance of knowing whether an antibiotic is concentration dependent or time dependent in terms of kinetics. Alright. Merong mahalagang side effect na dapat tandaan for all aminoglycosides, and that is cranial nerve 8 toxicity. Cranial nerve 8 toxicity. Anong ulit yung cranial nerve 8? Audiovestibular, di ba? So, meron dalawang components. Auditory, yung pandinig, and vestibular, yung balance. So, kapag auditory damage, ano yung pwedeng complain ng patients? Pwede makanig siya ng tinnitus, high-pitch ringing sound na hindi nagdi-disappear, and high-frequency hearing loss. So, kapag yung bata kausap niya halimbawa ng maliit ang boses, hindi na marinig. No? So, that's because of auditory damage. Yung naman vestibular damage, how would it manifest? Pwedeng mag-complain yung patient ng vertigo, umiikot yung paligid, nahihilo, ataxia, pwedeng magkaroon ng imbalance. So kapag tumatayo halimbawa from upuan to a standing position, natutumba, no? O kaya naman nahulog sa hagdan, no? Yun yung mga bagay na kailangan yung elicit when a patient is on aminoglycosides because those may be markings of cranial nerve 8 damage. Okay. Tapos merong ranking, no? Ang most autotoxic, top 1, kanamycin. Top 2, amikacin. Top 3, neomycin. Okay, yun yung mga most autotoxic na aminoglycosides. Ang most vestibulotoxic naman, top 1, streptomycin. Top 2, gentamicin. Okay. Okay. Isa na yun, cranial nerve 8 toxicity. Isa na mahalaga pang tandaan sa aminoglycoside side effects is nephrotoxicity. Toxicity to the kidneys. Top 1, neomycin. Top 2, gentamicin. Top 3, tobramycin. Okay. So, anong problema doon kung nephrotoxic? Anong problema kung may toxic to the kidney? So, if you give it together with a loop diuretic like furosemide, di ba yan yung maximal diuretic natin? Yung malakas yan magpaihi, di ba? That could cause stress to the kidneys. Pwede magkaroon ng acute kidney injury. Tapos, pwede rin naman pag kinumbine mo siya with another nephrotoxic agent like vancomycin or the antifungal amphotericin B. Pwedeng magkaroon ng additive na nephrotoxic effects. No? So, kapag isa na yung nephrotoxic, kapag meron ka ng aminoglycoside, try removing the other diuretics and other antimicrobial agents. Especially if nagsa-start na mag-manifest ng mga acute kidney injury symptoms yung patients. Ano ba yung symptoms nun? Halimbawa, hindi na umiihi. Pag tinanong nyo yung input-output ng patient, hindi na umiihi. Then that's when you should consider these side effects. Right. So, autotoxic, nephrotoxic, and lastly, for aminoglycosides, kailangan tandaan na nakakaantok sila. Ano ba yung sinasabi dito sa statement na to? It's a curare-like effect with neuromuscular blockade that results in respiratory paralysis at very high doses. Yung curare, familiar ba kayo dyan? Dapat na-discuss na siya dun sa mga anesthetics. Pero ang curare, ano kasi yan, is a poison. No? So ginagamit sa hunting ng mga sinaunang tribo sa South America. No? So yung pana, isasawsaw nila dun sa curare, which is parang baging yan. No? At, curare. Tapos pag pinana nila yung anong palaso nila yung mga hinahunt nilang hayop, halimbawa, baboy ramo? Hindi ko alam. Pero kung halimbawa natamaan ng poisoned arrow yung kanilang hinahunt na hayop, it could cause a flaccid paralysis, neuromuscular blockade. Hindi, yan, bababa yung acetylcholine at the nicotinic receptor. So anyway, kaya siya curare-like effect because it causes flaccid paralysis. Sila yung point ng curare-like effect. Para siyang tubucurarin para siyang pamparalyze, no? Para siyang neuromuscular blocking agent at very high doses. Pero at lower doses, pwede pa rin na siya nakakaantok. So you should counsel the patient to avoid driving heavy machinery, avoid avoid driving, avoid using heavy machinery, etc. Okay? So sige. So tatlong side effect yun na, mahalagang tandaan yun. Ototoxic, nephrotoxic, curare-like neuromuscular blockade, no? Ototoxic, nephrotoxic, curare-like neuromuscular blockade. Okay. Aminoglycoside, as I have mentioned, gram-negative enteric bacteria. Pwedeng gamitin for bacteremia and sepsis. Also, they could be given for endocarditis together with vancomycin or penicillin. Ito, meron ako ipo-point out sa inyo na drug interaction. Penicillins and aminoglycosides together are synergistic, stronger together. So, ang gagawin ng penicillin, bubutasin niya yung cell wall, makapasok yung aminoglycoside para ma-inhibit yung protein synthesis sa ribosomes. Diba? Synergistic. However, ang penicillin, kapag kinumbine sa tetracycline, antagonistic. Penicillin, tetracycline, antagonistic. Penicillin aminoglycoside, synergistic. Okay, yun yung gusto natin. So, sige. Aminoglycosides, maraming aminoglycosides na ginagamit din as second-line agents for tuberculosis. Later on kasi malalaman nyo na when treating tuberculosis, meron tayong first-line agents, isoniazid, rifampicin, pyrazinamide, ethambutol, sometimes streptomycin. Pero yung other aminoglycosides, pwede siyang gamitin as second-line options for tuberculosis. Halimbawa, yung pasyente, hindi makulit, hindi ininom yung gamot niya araw-araw. Tapos later on, naging resistant na sa streptomycin and sa isoniazid. Pwede kang magbigay ng aminoglycoside. Pero yon ang magbibigay nun, specialista na infectious disease specialist. Okay? So sige, we're still with aminoglycosides na. Pero this time, we're talking specifically about streptomycin. Streptomycin was isolated from Streptomyces griseus. Structure ganito, not that important. Tapos, ang indications niya, it's a second-line agent for the treatment of TB. But some references count it as first line. But I call it second line. It's given for enterococcal infections. And together with tetracycline, it could be given for this other infectious diseases like the plague caused by Yersinia pestis, tularemia, and brucellosis, no? So, yun yung mga kaibang sakit, no? Alright. Next, we have gentamicin, isolated from Micromonospora purpurea, active against gram-positive as well. Hindi lang gram-neg. Kasi diba most aminoglycosides, gram-neg. So, gentamicin, together with the penicillin or vancomycin. Ano nga ulit interaction nun? Synergistic. Synergistic for enterococcal endocarditis and viridans streptococcal endocarditis. Sino ba yung mga may ganyan? Halimbawa, may sira-sirang ngipin, kaya naman injecting drug user. Pwede magtumubo yung bacteria doon sa valves of their heart. Ang gamot, yan, gentamicin plus vancomycin or penicillin. Okay. Pwede rin naman, in combination with another second agent for severe infections caused by gram-negative bacteria likely to be resistant to other drugs. Okay? So, halimbawa, mga hospital-acquired conditions, hospital-acquired pneumonia, pwede mo nang pagsamasamahin together yan, mga antibiotic mo, to make sure that everything is completely covered. Okay? Aside from that, meron din gentamicin na pamahid na ointment, no? Yung gentamicin na yon for the treatment of infected burns, wounds, skin lesions, as well as ocular infections. Merong eye cream yan. I think for gonococcal na disease, no? It's also for the prevention of IV catheter infections. Right. Next aminoglycoside, we have tobramycin. Same activity as gentamicin, except gentamicin more active sa Serratia, but tobramycin more activity against Pseudomonas. Also, Enterococcus faecium is resistant to tobramycin. So, yung mga VRSE, yan, resistant yon sa tobramycin. Okay. But clinically, malaki naman yung overlap ng activity nila. So, gentamicin and tobramycin are interchangeable for most purposes. Okay? Aside from that, ang tobramycin pwede rin ibigay for lower respiratory tract infections, complicating cystic fibrosis, especially if you are considering Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Kasi, ang Pseudomonas aeruginosa, mahilig yan sa mga may complicating conditions, no? Halimbawa, cystic fibrosis nga, no? Okay. Next, aminoglycoside. Aminoglycosides pa rin tayo, ha? We have amikacin, a semisynthetic derivative of kanamycin, resistant to many enzymes that inactivate gentamicin and tobramycin. It's effective for tuberculosis. Next drug, netelmycin. Meron lang siyang ganitong chemical modification. Nag-add ng ethyl group to one amino of ring 2 to protect it from degradation. So, para lang siya mas stable form of aminoglycoside. Netelmycin active against gentamicin-resistant and tobramycin-resistant bacteria. But generally, interchangeable lang tatlo. Genta, Tobra, and netelmycin. Neomycin is a preparation for elective bowel surgery. Anong sabihin nun? So, halimbawa, meron kasi tinatawag na bowel prep, bowel preparation. So, yung patient na operahan sa bituka, bibigyan ng kung ano-anong gamot, no? Yung iba doon, laxative, pampatae. Yung iba doon, katulad ng neomycin, which is an aminoglycoside, is for the suppression of facultative flora, no? To prevent surgical site infections. Okay? Aside from that, so merong patients na merong hepatic encephalopathy na tinatawag. Ganito kasi yan. Kung halimbawa lasenggo yung tatay mo, tapos yung liver niya na-damage na, naging fibrotic na, nagkaroon ng cirrhosis. So meron ng chronic liver disease. Tapos, lumobo na yung tiyan ng tatay mong lasenggo. Bakit lumobo yung tiyan? Kasi hindi makareturn yung fluid from the peritoneal cavity via the portal circulation pabalik doon sa vena cava mo, di ba? Kasi cirrhotic yung liver. So, ano mangyayari doon? Isa sa mga pwedeng mangyayari among those patients is that yung facultative flora, yung normal microbiota ng bituka, pwedeng mag-translocate. Pwedeng tumawid ng blood vessel. Tapos, or pwede rin mag-produce ng toxic compounds pala. Yun pa ang point ko. Pwede mag-produce ng toxic compounds, thereby causing hepatic encephalopathy. Pwedeng causing symptoms dun sa tatay mo na sanggero, no? So, pwedeng like any other psychiatric symptoms, pwedeng wala sa sarili, pwedeng kung ano na pinagsasabi, no? So, one of the drugs you could give those patients, those with overgrowth of bacterial flora, you could give neomycin. Okay? So, neomycin pang bituka. No? Bowel prep, and those with chronic liver disease, specifically with hepatic encephalopathy. Right. Next, we have the aminoglycoside, paromomycin. Paromomycin. Paromomycin is what we call a luminal agent. Halimbawa, meron kang patient with amoebiasis. Lahat ng pasyente kasi with amoebiasis, you need to give a luminal agent. Bakit luminal? Ibig sabihin, nag-work siya sa loob ng intestinal lumen, no? Nasa loob siya ng hollow cavity. Yun naman sabihin ng lumen, di ba? Loob ng hollow cavity. So, ang paromomycin is a luminal agent used for the treatment of amoebiasis, for example, caused by Entamoeba histolytica. Alright, next we have spectinomycin. Okay, at this time, we're moving on, no? Hindi na ito aminoglycoside, kundi ako nagkakamali. Yan, hindi siya aminoglycoside. Pero, mayroon pa rin mycin. Don't be confused, ha? Hindi lahat ng mycin aminoglycoside. Alright. Spectinomycin is an aminocyclical antibiotic structurally related to aminoglycosides. Okay? Tapos, it lacks the amino sugars and glycosidic bonds characteristic of aminoglycosides. Ito yung structure niya. Pinapakita ko lang dito at this point na hindi siya aminoglycoside. It's an aminocyclitol. It's active against many gram-positive and gram-negative is used as an alternative treatment for drug-resistant gonorrhea as well as gonorrhea in penicillin-allergic patients. Okay? So, yung mga malalang gonorrhea na complicated. Bakit? Ano ba yung first line sa gonorrhea? Nasabi ko kanina, di ba? Ang first line sa gonorrhea, ceftriaxone. Okay? Ceftriaxone. Oh, tapos na pala tayo sa aminoglycosides. So, oh, by the way, magtatapos na muna tayo sa isang kasabihan bago tayo mag 5 minutes break. Sabi dito, within 1 linear centimeter of your colon, there lives and works more bacteria than all humans who have ever born. So tayong humans, mas marami pa tayong bacterial cells sa bituka natin kesa human cells. Mas marami pang bacterial cells kesa human cells. So actually, ano tayo, in a way, para tayong symbiont, no? Symbiont of many bacteria. Alright? So yun lang yung lesson for this part. Okay. So kumusta naman kayo? Okay lang ba? Could we move to the other Zoom meeting? Pwede ba tayong lumipat doon sa TMTCS? 5-minute break?
Sige po, Doc.